I was gone less than 40 minutes. When I came back, my front door was cracked open, my porch light was on in the middle of the afternoon, and two silhouettes were moving inside my living room like they owned the place. They said they were from the HOA. The problem was, I had never joined one. The street I lived on was one of the last quiet pockets in a town that had been swallowed by cookie-cutter developments and aggressive homeowner associations. When I bought the house 3 years earlier, I made it very clear to my realtor that I wanted nothing to do with HOAs. I wanted to paint my fence whatever color I liked, plant what I wanted in my yard, and live without someone measuring my grass with a ruler. This house was perfect for that. Older neighborhood, big lots, no dues, no committees, no petty tyrants with clipboards. It was a small brick ranch with a wide porch and a backyard that backed up to a line of trees. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I'd put in a vegetable garden, built a little shed for my tools, and installed solar lights along the walkway myself. It was quiet, peaceful, and up until that day, completely drama-free. That Saturday morning started like any other. I woke up early, made coffee, and worked in the yard for a bit. I was in the middle of repairing a trellis when I realized I'd run out of screws. I also needed more mulch for the flower beds. No big deal. The hardware store was only about 20 minutes away. I locked the front door, grabbed my keys, and drove off, thinking I'd be back before the coffee even wore off. I remember the sun being bright, the radio playing some forgettable song, and thinking how nice it was to have a day with nothing scheduled. I was in the store maybe 15 minutes, grabbed what I needed, and headed straight back. 40 minutes total, door to door. That's all I was gone. When I pulled back onto my street, something felt off immediately. My porch light was on. I never left it on during the day. As I got closer, my stomach tightened. The front door wasn't fully closed. It was open just enough to show a sliver of darkness inside. I killed the engine and sat there, heart pounding. Maybe I forgot to shut it all the way? Maybe the wind blew it open? But then I saw movement through the front window. A shadow passed by, slow and deliberate. Someone was inside my house. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone and called 911, keeping my eyes locked on the door. I told the dispatcher my address and that someone was inside my home without permission. She told me to stay in my vehicle and wait for officers. I did exactly that, every second stretching longer than the last. When the police cruiser finally pulled up, relief washed over me. The officer approached cautiously, hand resting near his holster, and went straight to my door. I stayed back like he told me to. I heard him announce himself, heard muffled voices from inside, then raised voices. A minute later he stepped back out and waved me over. "You're going to want to see this," he said. I walked inside, and for a second I honestly thought I was being pranked. Two middle-aged people stood in my living room. They were wearing bright green vests with an HOA logo stitched on the front. One of them had a clipboard. The other had a tablet. My couch cushions were slightly out of place, and one of them had moved a picture frame on my shelf. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. The woman didn't even look embarrassed. "Greenwood Estates Homeowners Association," she said smoothly. "We're conducting a compliance inspection." "In my house?" I snapped. "Yes," the man added calmly. "We received a complaint about potential violations." I stared at them like they were insane. "You broke into my home." "We have authority," the woman said, tapping her clipboard. "All properties on this street fall under Greenwood's jurisdiction." "No, they don't," I shot back. "This house is not part of any HOA. I bought it specifically because of that." They exchanged a look, the kind people give when they think you're ignorant. "Our records show otherwise," she said. The officer stepped in. "Do you have proof that this property is under your HOA?" The man hesitated. "We have a map on file." "I have a deed," I said. "And it says you have no right to be here." The officer didn't waste time. "Then you're trespassing. You need to leave now." They protested quietly, but they left, shooting me looks as they walked out like I was the one in the wrong. The woman paused at the door. "You'll be hearing from the board," she said with a tight smile. I locked the door behind them and stood there in my own living room, feeling violated in a way I'd never felt before. They had walked through my house. They had touched my things. And they had done it like it was completely normal. The next morning, an orange envelope was taped to my door. Inside was a list of violations: lawn too long, shed not approved, trash bins visible. Each came with a fine. The letter stated I was now officially subject to HOA rules due to a recent annexation vote. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a takeover. The fines started piling up fast, almost like they had been waiting for me to push back. 2 days after the orange notice, another one showed up, this time thicker and stamped with the HOA's logo. It claimed my lawn was still non-compliant, my shed was an unauthorized structure, and my driveway was improperly maintained. The total already passed $600, and it had only been 48 hours. That was when Jerry from across the street knocked on my door. He was in his late 60s, always friendly, always quiet, and he looked nervous standing on my porch. "They're coming after you now," he said in a low voice. "Who?" "The HOA. Greenwood. And especially Karen." That name rang a bell. I'd heard it whispered a few times before, usually followed by an eye roll. Karen Whitfield was the HOA president for Greenwood Estates, the sprawling development that wrapped around my street on 3 sides. According to Jerry, she ran it like her own private kingdom. "She hates it when someone isn't under her control," he said. "Your house being outside the HOA makes her furious." He told me they had done this before. They'd pressure homeowners on the edge of Greenwood with fines, letters, and threats until most people gave in. Once you paid, they claimed that was proof you'd accepted membership. That night, I contacted a property lawyer named Dana. By the next afternoon, she confirmed what I already knew: my house was not part of Greenwood, and no HOA could legally annex it without my signed consent. We sent a formal cease and desist letter to the HOA board and to Karen personally. It demanded they stop contacting me, stop trespassing, and drop all fines immediately. They ignored it. 3 days later, a landscaping crew showed up in my yard with Greenwood work orders. They started trimming my bushes and tearing out my flower beds. I ran outside and told them to leave. One of them said, "HOA orders, like that made it okay." I filmed everything. When Dana sent that footage along with copies of my deed to the county, things finally got serious. Greenwood was warned that they were violating property law and facing legal action. Karen didn't back down. She escalated. One evening, I got a motion alert from my backyard camera. 2 men in Greenwood shirts were cutting the lock on my shed. I sprinted outside and caught them red-handed. They claimed they were doing a safety inspection. I told them there was a restraining order against any HOA activity on my property. They said Karen told them it didn't apply. The sheriff didn't agree. Those men were cited for trespassing, and suddenly Greenwood was no longer just dealing with me. They were dealing with the county. That's when the neighborhood turned. People started knocking on my door. Quiet neighbors, older couples, even a young family from 2 streets over. They all had stories. Fines for ridiculous things. Threats. Inspections that felt more like intimidation. Dana gathered everything and filed a class action lawsuit against Greenwood Estates and Karen personally. Fraud. Harassment. Abuse of power. Local news picked it up. Karen went on TV claiming she was being attacked by anti-community extremists. Then she made her final mistake. Late one night, someone set my trash can on fire and spray-painted rule breaker on my garage door. My cameras caught everything. The hood, the walk, the face when she glanced up. It was Karen. She had staged the attack herself. The footage went straight to the district attorney. Within a week, Karen was removed as HOA president, Greenwood's finances were frozen, and criminal charges were filed. 6 months later, my house is quiet again. No fines. No letters. No strangers in green vests. The HOA lost. And for the first time since that day, my front door is just a door again, not a battlefield.